Adam, stay with me. I'll still update our viewers on what is currently happening at this moment, and we understand that the Duke of Sussex has arrived at Balmoral a few hours after his brother William and Prince Andrew and Edward. Prince Harry will join other members of the royal family as they mourn the death of the Queen, who died earlier this afternoon. However, his wife Meghan did not travel with him to Scotland. Adam, coming back to you, the relationship between the Queen, her children, and her great-grandchildren was very fraught. Do you think the memories of the past will just fade away, or what do you think King Charles III will do now to mend the ribbon, so to speak?
Well, I think even though Queen Elizabeth has passed, that certainly doesn't erase certainly the national psyche here in the UK, the huge amount of sort of trauma and scandals that happened over recent years to do with, as you mentioned, between the Queen, her children and her grandchildren. And I think really, you know, one of the things that's most effective in terms of communications is trying to project sort of personality across. And that's ultimately what really connects monarchs who have sort of quite a, you know, sort of dry role in the constitution really with the public. You know, it's trying to get to know people. And so I think the fact that there has been all this scandal really has sort of undermined the monarchy. And I think it's something that deeply upset the Queen, you know, as someone who experienced from a very young age a huge amount of unease at the royal family. I think for her to see that during the end of her life was a very, very difficult thing to see. And of course, you know, Charles will naturally, he's not only now King of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth, he's also sort of formally head of the family. So naturally, he will be able to sort of make decisions that affect the family in ways that he didn't really before. Of course, you know, he, in terms of how he deals with his brothers, particularly to do with Prince Andrew, you know, naturally, relationships between siblings are very, very different between a mother and a sibling, a mother and a son. So I think he might have quite a difficult task in trying to rein in any kind of difficulties that he has. And of course, you know, Prince Harry has openly spoken in the last few years about the difficult relationship he's had with his father. So I think really that will be his sort of number one priority, along with his formal duties, is to try to mend those relationships, but also do it in a way that doesn't risk actually creating even more of a problem. And unfortunately, you know, we live in an era where you know, things are often leaked, and you can't always have private conversations that remain private, particularly when you have children who are willing to speak to the media openly about these kinds of subjects. Mm-hmm. So really, I think he's going to have quite a difficult task to bring that back together, but also trying to sort of replace the Queen's role as not only as a head of state, but as a head of a family as well.
Adam, we are talking about eras here, and there's a particular statement that we are making as reporters and as the media, that this is the second end of Elizabethan era. Probably you can explain to that, to our audience, what that means. The end of a second era of Elizabethan era.
Yeah, so of course, you know, Queen Elizabeth was the second Queen Elizabeth. So really, you know, the reference to that just refers to, you know, the fact that she was the second Queen Elizabeth. But I think it also reflects the fact that it was very much an era. You know, she presided over 70 years worth of rule. And really, you know, the last 70 years in the UK, and obviously with the wider world, has been a period when we've seen, you know, more change, both politically and scientifically and societally, than really we've seen kind of the last few hundred years. And so really, you know, I think we can define the second Elizabethan era as that process of change, but ultimately one that was sort of managed through an aspect of stability. And one of the reasons why people think that there hasn't been any major revolutions in the UK has been due to the fact that the UK has a constitution that's sort of seems quite flexible and allows monarchs to take a kind of particular approach that perhaps they don't, or ceremonial presidents don't in republics. So I think really, the second Elizabethan rule will be associated with that aspect of change, but also trying to preserve aspects of the United Kingdom. And certainly during that period, we've seen major threats to the United Kingdom, not only defence threats, but actually internal threats as well. The movement for Scottish independence, and of course Northern Ireland potentially breaking away as well, has really massively accelerated over the last 10 years or so. And so really I think the Elizabethan period, second Elizabethan period, will be, as I say, defined by that period of change, but also with a sort of aspect of stability that Elizabeth provided in the monarchy as well.
Adam Schwarz, stay with me. We'll go live to Buckingham Palace, where a sea of people is now standing outside Buckingham Palace following the news of the Queen's death. And the announcement has been placed at Buckingham Palace Gate. And also, the flag is flying at half-mast. Now, Queen Elizabeth II, the UK's longest reigning monarch, died at the age of 96. She died peacefully at Balmoral Castle on Thursday afternoon. And this was according to the palace. The crown passes immediately to her son and heir, Charles, who now becomes King Charles III. The new king said his mother's death was a moment of the greatest sadness for me and all members of my family. The Queen steered the monarchy through turbulent times as Britain's empire ended and its place in the world fundamentally changed. She was head of state of the United Kingdom and 14 other countries, including Australia, Canada, and Jamaica. And we had the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau paying homage to the Queen. And it was noted that the Prime Minister used to joke with the Queen every time they met. Born as princess, she only became heir to the throne after her uncle's abdication in 1936. She is survived by her 4 children, 8 grandchildren, and 12 great-grandchildren. Adam, thank you very much for staying with me. Let's talk about the transition now. What happens now going forward?
Well, the next steps are really something that a huge amount of thought have gone into. About 5 years ago in 2017, the details of what would happen following the Queen's passing was leaked. It was known as Operation London Bridge. So this is something that, say, is being rehearsed, but also the Queen herself would have had a huge amount of input into in terms of how the process of the transition is managed, but also the process of saying farewell as well. So, of course, the Queen's coffin will ultimately be sent down to London, where it will most likely lie in state for a period of several days in Westminster Hall, in the Houses of Parliament. And that will provide the British public with an opportunity to pay their respects and tributes to the Queen through being able to pass by the Queen's coffin, as we last saw when Queen Elizabeth, Queen Mother, her mother, passed away in 2002. So I think to some extent it will follow that quite closely. Of course, Prince Philip, the Queen's husband, passed away just over a year ago, and we saw quite sort of toned down ceremonies for that, mostly due to the fact that we were still in a period of COVID, but also to reflect the kind of modest period of the fact that so many people in the country were not able to say goodbye to their families. I think what we're about to see is a lot more grand than that. I think we're now in a period in the sort of post-pandemic where we are able to have those much larger crowds gather, and ultimately after the Queen lies in state, there will be a funeral led by the Archbishop of Canterbury in Westminster Hall before the Queen is ultimately laid to rest. And of course, there will be a period of national mourning that will take place for several days. There may be a national holiday as well that will coincide with that. And then eventually, King Charles III will be coronated, but that will probably only take place next year. It's a huge event that will probably involve not only a huge amount of the UK's political and cultural establishment, but also many people abroad as well, involving the Commonwealth. I think that's something that will take place next year because it's something that takes a huge amount of time. But at the moment, I think the main thing that authorities want to do will be ensuring stability and ensuring that there isn't any kind of period of chaos. And of course, this passing of Queen Elizabeth has coincided with a new Prime Minister and a new government taking over just a couple of days ago. So I think the fact that these have come together have created an additional risk that you might have some further disruption and instability than you otherwise would. But I think it will probably be quite a well-managed process.
Adam Schwartz is a writer and political commentator. Stay with me because this broadcast continues. You are watching WION World is One and London Bridge is down, meaning the 96-year-old monarch, the longest reigning monarch, Queen Elizabeth II, is dead. Mark the 8th of September 2022. That's when the Queen breathed her last.